Okay, we're almost ready here. Just setting up the last part of the live stream.
Okay, do you think it's almost ready?
Almost. We're like
okay.
Probably 30 seconds away from it going live.
Okay, I'll just say as well to start that like I won't be talking too much about our traditional foods because I feel like you know, obviously they're probably the best thing that we could be eating, and our foods wouldn't really pose any problems with managing diabetes. Like they're pretty much the best thing that we could be eating. So much of the presentation will focus on introduced foods because I feel like they have, they're just much more likely to cause issues with blood sugar. And I think those are the ones that people tend to have more questions about. But yeah, if you have any questions about our traditional foods, then please ask at any time. You think we're good?
Yeah, we're live now. Thanks,
okay. So thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jessie Newman, and I'm a dietitian with Island Health. I work as the Indigenous Health Dietitian, and I'm so excited for this presentation. I had so much fun putting it together. This really is what I love to do. I love speaking about diabetes. And so like just to start, I will introduce myself a little bit further. I think it's really important for me that you understand who I am, where I'm from, and why I do this. So I'm from Skidegate on Haida Gwaii. That's where I was born and raised. And I'm Haida, Heiltsuk and Kwakwaka'wakw. And I come from two fishing families. And so I would say my favorite food is probably sockeye, and I think that just comes from being around it my whole life, and I was very lucky to have access to our foods. And you can see there, those are my Haida grandparents on the left there, and on the top there, those are my Heiltsuk Kwakwaka'wakw grandparents and my family. And I love being in the kitchen with other people. I love cooking with other people. And I absolutely love biking and hiking. Those are probably my favorite activities to do when I'm not working. So, and then like, why do I do this? I was really influenced by my grandmother, who is there on the right, her name's Verna, and my great aunt, who's there on the left, that's Muriel. I grew up next door to my auntie Muriel, and my nanai lived down the hill. That's grandmother and Haida. And so I spent a lot of time with both of them when I was much younger. And I always knew that they had diabetes, but I didn't really understand like what that meant or how it was affecting their health. And I don't think that they really had a strong idea of what it was doing to their bodies either. And I just kind of thought it meant that they couldn't have cake or they couldn't have dessert. I didn't understand like the processes that were happening inside of their bodies. And so my great aunt passed quite a while ago, like maybe about 15 years ago. Her diabetes was much more advanced, and she had an amputation, or like she was to have one, and she'd lost most of her vision. And so just seeing what she went through just had such a profound effect on me. And then my grandmother passed about 2 years ago, also from diabetes related complications. And I just had to wonder if they had received better care, or if they had a better understanding of how diabetes was affecting them, if they might have managed it better. And was that an effect of the healthcare system and racism within the healthcare system? And so I really wanted to be a part of just, you know, being somebody who had the time to really listen and explain diabetes to people, and also really wanted to be involved in prevention as well and teaching it in schools. And so this is really why I do what I do. And yeah, they were very, very important to me, and I love them a lot. So sorry, let's see. Okay, I'm not sure what happened there. But I mean, I don't want to like scare anybody. I would say one of the, I guess, aspects of my job is to make sure that people make informed choices. And I want people to know why it's so important to manage your blood sugar. And so what diabetes really does is it damages our blood vessels. Having high blood sugar damages blood vessels and makes it much more easy for fats to accumulate inside of our blood vessels. And so that's what can lead to strokes and heart attacks, but also within our smaller blood vessels as well, like our eyes, or the ones inside of our kidneys, or our hands and our feet. It can damage those much sooner. And so, you know, you can have problems with vision, or with tingling and numbness, or things like that. And so I think diabetes is really tricky. Like, you can't really see the effects of diabetes until they're quite advanced. You know, usually like that could be 10 or 20 years down the line. So you can kind of think you're okay, but you're not really okay. And so this is why it's so important to manage blood sugar. And so this is why I'm here to talk to you today about managing blood sugar through diet. And so I think in order to do that, it's important for me to kind of talk a little bit about what are termed the three macronutrients, and that's carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And I think a lot of people don't have a strong understanding of what those are, but I think if you have like just a basic understanding, then it can give you a better idea of which foods are better for you to manage blood sugar. And so just to start, I'm going to show you this basic chart. And so the carbohydrates, the proteins, and the fat affect blood sugar quite differently. And so in this simplified chart, you can see that carbohydrates have a much more profound effect on blood sugar. And it totally depends on the type, and we will discuss that, and I will show you a much more detailed chart after I'm done speaking to these. But just in general, you can see that carbs are going to affect your blood sugar quite quickly, and then proteins are going to be much slower, and then fats are going to be even slower, and that's because they're much harder for our body to break down. In general, proteins and fats are much much more difficult for our body to break down. And so food literally leaves our stomach much more slowly, and it's absorbed into our body much more slowly. So we're not going to have that big spike in blood sugar. It's going to be much more even. And when we're eating in that way, we're not going to be damaging our blood vessels. And that's our goal. So carbohydrates, all of these foods have carbohydrates. And I feel like some people kind of forget about dairy, like milk and yogurt and cheese. That has carbohydrates. Fruit has carbohydrates. And what they do is they provide our body with energy. So it's really important to eat carbohydrates. Like, I'm not in favor of super low carbohydrate diets because I feel like it's really hard to stick to those anyways. But if you were to look at a label of foods, you would see that there's sugars, there's starches, and there's fiber. And sugars are much more easy for our body to break down. Starches are a little bit harder for our body to break down, and starches are found in foods like potatoes, rice, bread. You can see the oats here. These all have starches. And then there's fiber, and our body actually can't break down fiber. And so because our body can't break it down, it actually has this amazing effect where it literally like slows down the rate at which anything that you're eating, like any other carbs that you're eating, like the starches or the sugar, like it slows down that process. I really like to say, like when you're having foods with fiber, it's almost like giving your food a suit of armor. It makes it much more difficult for your body to break down food, and so you're gonna get like that really slow release of sugar. Like, you're not gonna get a spike in blood sugar. So if you could add fiber to all of your meals, then you would be doing yourself a really good service. And so, I mean, I really think of fiber as like a real superhero. And the amazing thing is that a lot of the fiber containing foods are quite cheap. So I think I would feel like if you took one tip away from this presentation, I would hope that you would add more fiber to your diets. And why should you eat more fiber? And this isn't just for people with diabetes, like this is for everybody, I would say. It's linked to lower rates of chronic disease, and that's because it really helps to, manage your blood sugar. People that eat more fiber tend to weigh less, and it helps keep you regular. It helps keep you feeling fuller longer, and that's because it's really slowing down digestion. Remember I said that, you've got that suit of armor around your food, so it really makes it harder for your body to break down. So food's gonna leave your stomach like much more slowly. And so if you were looking to maintain your weight, adding more fiber would be great as well. So it's really good for like weight management. And also stabilizing blood sugar, again, slower release of food from your stomach equals slower release of sugar. Foods that tend to be high in fiber tend to have more vitamins, minerals, nutrients, just much more nutritious all around. And then, because your body can't digest that fiber, the bacteria in your gut will actually work on it. So that actually is related to lower rates of cancer as well. So there's just so many benefits to eating more fiber that I truly recommend that everybody gets more fiber in their diet. And you might be wondering, well, how do I do that? Like, where's a good place to start? And I think breakfast is a really great place to start. This is just to give you some ideas of adding more fiber to your breakfast. I eat a really high fiber breakfast every day, and this is what I have every day. So I have oats. I usually have steel cut oats, and I put a lot of seeds into my oats. And then I have blueberries and yogurt every day. And I'll also usually have some dried apricots as well. And so you can see here, like that's 19 grams of fiber. And I wouldn't want you to get too worked up about the numbers. But for me, at my age, I think the recommended amount of fiber in a day is about 30. I can't remember exactly, like it might be 25. But I would say like a very small percentage of people actually get the amount of fiber that is recommended in a day. Like probably like 5% of people in the general population get enough fiber. So if you could like take one tip again, I would say try to get more fiber in your diet. So any questions on that? No questions yet, Bianca? No? Okay. So proteins, very important as well. Honestly, like proteins do everything in your body. Like they really help make sure that all the processes that need to happen in your body are happening. So it's important to get enough. But I would say a lot of people get really kind of worked up about it and trying to, take protein powders and add protein to their diet. But I would say in general, like everybody is probably getting enough if you're having 3 meals throughout the day and like snacks, because, I think most foods contain at least 10% protein, and that's enough for you in the day. But also super important is that most foods that contain protein tend to be higher in iron. And I'm seeing more and more that, especially women, Indigenous women, for some reason, iron levels tend to be a bit lower. And I kind of suffer from that as well. My iron levels aren't as high as I would like them to be. So all of these foods contain protein, and they're all like, and fiber as well. Like you can see the beans, the edamame here, the deer and the chicken are a bit higher in iron, and iron that's easier to absorb. But clams, and especially baby clams, are actually one of the highest in iron, highest foods in iron that you can eat. So if you were having like issues with iron and you wanted to do it in a more, you just wanted to do it through food, like to raise your iron levels, I would say like having more of our traditional foods would be great. Like clams are amazing. So yeah, so these are proteins. Don't worry, most people are getting enough in the day. But like I said, they are a little bit harder for our body to break down. And so you're just going to get a much slower release of sugar when you're adding protein to your carbohydrates. Because remember that chart, like the carbohydrates are going to give you that spike, but the proteins are going to like bring it down a bit. So super important to have protein with carbohydrates if you're trying to manage your blood sugar. And then fats. I think fats kind of get a bit of a bad rap, and I guess that kind of started in the 80s. Like people became very, very afraid of fats, but fats are so important, especially for brain development and brain health. But also just like the overall structure of our cells, like they really help ensure that as well all the processes in our bodies are happening. But of course there's like better fats and fats that aren't so great. And some of these here, like I would say avocados are an amazing source. Of course, sockeye. I've got a photo here of ulican grease, also an amazing source of fat. And then canola, really great. Coconut, not the biggest fan, but it's a fat. It's a bit high in saturated fat. But then like all of, most of the nuts and seeds as well are also a great source of good fat. And I will discuss the difference as well between saturated and trans fat in a moment here. So just taking a closer look, like if you were to look at a food label, you would see saturated fats and trans fats and unsaturated fats. And of course, you know, maybe you don't know that unsaturated fats are the ones that are better for us. They're the ones that are less likely to cause accumulation within our blood vessels. So, you know, I really would hope that you were getting more foods in unsaturated fats. And these are, and then there's the saturated and the trans fats, which are the ones that are more likely to cause the accumulation within our blood vessels. And so these are the types of foods that we really want to limit. But saturated fats tend to be found in animals. So you can see here that there's beef, there's lamb, pork, and then butter and cheese, which are animal products. But then trans fats, they're not natural. They're created in processing. And so you can see that they tend to be in baked goods or packaged foods, fast foods. So just in general, they're not as good for you as saturated fats, because you can see with the saturated fats, like there is at least some goodness in there, like there's some nutrition in those foods, like vitamins and minerals. But if you look at the foods that contain trans fats, you're not really getting anything in there. Like it's basically just sugar and fat. And so that's just not the best thing that you could be having to manage your blood sugar or to help prevent damage to your blood vessels. So I really encourage you to limit your trans fat and the types of foods that contain trans fats. And so just kind of like remember that list there. These are the foods that we really want to be limiting. And then this is, I just wanted to give you all a sense of which foods are, or which oils are a bit higher in saturated fat. And you can see here that coconut oil actually is one of the highest sources of saturated fat. And then there's butter. But then you can see here that canola and safflower and flaxseed and sunflower all tend to be a little bit lower in saturated fat. And so olive oil here as well. I tend to recommend to clients olive oil and canola oil. Like they tend to be a little bit cheaper, and I think they're super versatile, especially canola oil, like so great for baking. And then olive oil is really great for salad dressings and stuff like that as well. So out of all of the oils, yeah, these are definitely the ones that I really like. So, and then I just wanted to show you a bit more of an in-depth view of carbohydrates. So they're definitely not all created equal. You can see here that there's certain foods, or I would say more drinks, that cause a huger spike in blood sugar. And that's juice, pop, Slurpees, iced coffee drinks, especially if you're having them without food. It's gonna leave your stomach so quickly and cause a huge spike in blood sugar. And this is kind of for anybody. And then like once that happens, you're actually gonna end up going a little bit down again, because you're gonna get a huge release of insulin. and you're going to end up down here. And so you're probably going to start to feel quite tired after. And so it's not the best idea for managing your blood sugar. And so having a piece of fruit is a little bit better because you're at least getting some fiber in there. So trying to have like an apple instead of apple juice is going to be much better for managing your blood sugar. And so then there's starches, and those are a bit harder for our body to break down. And so this is like potatoes, rice. You're still going to get like a bit of a spike, but it's certainly not going to be as much as pop or juice. And then there's milk, so like dairy products. And so the amazing thing about milk as well is that it has, like in addition to having carbohydrate, it actually has protein and fat in it as well. It's kind of one of those rare foods that has everything. So you're just not going to get like as big a spike as you would with like potatoes or rice or things like that. And then again, protein a little bit less, and then fat much less. So I would really encourage you when you're eating your food to kind of take a look and see like what's a carbohydrate, what's a protein, what's a fat. Am I getting a good mixture of the three in my meal? Or am I, you know, with a snack, I would hope you're getting like a little bit of protein or a little bit of fat with your carbohydrate, because that's going to be better for your blood sugar, but it's also going to help you keep fuller longer as well. So it's really great for keeping things even. Like it's going to be great for your energy. It's just better overall. And so, yeah, I hope that kind of helps a little bit. Okay, and then I also want to add that processing has a huge effect on how foods affect your blood sugar. And I'm going to use oats as an example here. And so you can see on the top left there that when oats are harvested, they're a much larger grain, and can actually eat them like that, but it takes quite a while to cook. But what that's going to do, like eating that food in its unprocessed state, is actually going to be much harder for your body to break down. So it's going to have like that really evening effect on your blood sugar. It's not going to cause a spike. It's going to be like quite slow. And so the first stage of processing is when they cut them up, and so that's steel cut oats. And I personally eat these. I think I mentioned earlier, I really like the taste. I think they have like a bit of a nutty taste, kind of a chewy texture. They do take a little bit longer to cook, but in this state, it's going to be much better for your blood sugar, just like harder for your body to break down. And then you can see here, like each stage, the rolled oats, those are like 10-minute oats. And then there's the quick oats, which are just a few minutes. You know, not quite as good for your blood sugar. It's going to be easier for your body to break down. And then there's instant oats here. And these are like, you know, ultimately processed, because pretty much you just have to add hot water. So they're steamed out, they're flattened, they're so easy to cook, and that means it's so easy for your body to break down. It's kind of like a piece of cake, and so it's just gonna cause like a much bigger spike in blood sugar. But I mean, if you don't have time and you do love quick oats and you do love instant oats, think like, how could I make this better for my blood sugar, and what could I do to get more of like a flattening effect? And so that would be adding protein or fat to your breakfast if you're having this for breakfast. So you could add, you know, some peanut butter, you could have it with an egg, you could have some avocado, you could have a piece of cheese as well. So all of those additions would kind of flatten it out. But you could also add like nuts or seeds to it as well. So like ground flaxseed or chia seed. All of those additions, like even, you know, having it with milk, adding some, you know, because I said like that has fat and protein in it as well. So all of those things could make that better, but just know like very processed foods, and that goes with everything like baked goods or like chips or candy bars or things like that. They're all going to be quite easy for your body to break down, and then you're going to get that spike in blood sugar. And then I want to ask a question of the group here. Which of these meals do you think will raise your blood sugar more quickly? And these are all meals that were made by my sister. She's an incredible cook. And these are very typical of the types of meals that I think I grew up on, and I think a lot of Indigenous households make. And so like this one here, this is called cow in Haida. It's herring eggs on kelp, and then you've got some potatoes with seaweed, and then down here we've got sockeye and broccoli and potatoes and seaweed, and then bologna and rice and a little bit of a salad and corn, and then fried bread with syrup and jam. And so which of these do you think will raise your blood sugar more quickly? And I can't even see the chat. So if somebody wanted to just unmute and say.
The bannock?
Yeah, probably. And like, this is actually kind of a bit of a trick question. I mean, it honestly depends on how much you eat of something. So that's another, that'll have a huge bearing on your blood sugar. So if you were just to have like maybe a tiny piece of bannock, that might not actually cause that big a spike in blood sugar. But yeah, so the amount of food that you eat will actually have a bearing. So, you know, if you didn't want to change anything, if you were like, Jess, no, I like the food that I eat, I don't want to change, you could eat off of a smaller plate. Like that has a huge effect on how much you'll actually take in at a meal. And so which of these do you think would cause, you know, a much more even rise in blood sugar?
The salmon on the bottom.
Yeah, and why do you think that?
Well, there's more protein to balance the carbs from your potatoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's also like good fat in there too. So
But there is, and the seaweed.
yeah, and so there's fiber in the seaweed as well. Mm-hmm. And then from the broccoli too. So trying to get like as many vegetables as you can in with a meal is also a good way to go, because you're going to get more fiber. So yeah, these are just like some ideas to help to even out your blood sugar, to help prevent spikes in blood sugar. But even with the bannock, like, I mean, I always like to say that I don't think good nutrition is all or nothing. Like, you can still have your bannock, but, you know, maybe try do a half and a half, like half whole wheat, half white flour. I've done a mixture of tahini and maple syrup instead of having like straight up jam and Rogers syrup, because if you actually look at the label of Rogers syrup, it's kind of unbelievable how much sugar they can pack into that. So yeah, just trying to find a happy medium sometime is really nice, or just having a little bit of the straight up regular fried bread as well can have a big effect. So yeah, it doesn't have to be all or nothing for sure. So what I'm gonna, oh, did you have a question?
Yeah, so there's a question in the chat, and it says, it's kind of going back to the fat. So the question was on grapeseed oil. So they just said I didn't see that one on the list, so maybe they're just wondering.
Oh, yeah, that's also, it's a really good oil. Grapeseed is awesome. Like it probably would be like in this area, like it would be very similar. Low in saturated fat, and then also quite high in monounsaturated fat. So definitely a really strong choice. I just, you know, it costs a little bit more, so I'm just a little bit wary to recommend it sometimes, but definitely a solid choice for sure.
Okay, and then there's a second question, and they wanted to know what quinoa was like compared to rice.
Oh, okay. So quinoa, like I know it was touted as kind of like this super food and was super trendy for a while. You know, like it's high in protein and whatever, but it's actually not that high in protein. It is a bit higher in fiber, you know, and it has like a weird taste. So I would say like if you really love the taste, then go for it. But it's so much more expensive compared to rice. So I would say there's kind of that trade-off there. It's like, I wouldn't say it's any better than any other type of grain. You know, it's just been kind of heavily marketed as like a superfood, but I wouldn't say that it is. I would almost say like just having like barley or something would be even better because it's higher in fiber, it's super cheap, highly versatile. So yeah, like quinoa a little bit better than white rice, but I wouldn't say like significantly better. So I'm just going to go through all of the different types of carbs and give you a sense of which types of breads and cereals and fruits you might want to eat less, and then give you ideas of which you might want to eat more. And so this is like very generalized because everybody reacts differently to different foods. And so I don't like to make generalizations or blanket statements to people like, oh, you shouldn't eat this or you shouldn't eat that, because I don't know how their body's going to react to that. And the only way you can really know is by checking your blood sugar before you eat and then checking your blood sugar like 2 hours after you eat. And I'll talk about that a little bit after this because it's really important. But just in general, these are the types of breads that will cause your blood sugar to rise a bit quicker. Dumplings, whole wheat breads, and I think this might be a bit surprising to a lot of people. Like whole wheat bread is actually pretty heavily processed, and so most of the fiber is actually taken out. And so it will cause like a bigger spike than some other breads that will be a little bit better. And so baguettes and bagels, like these are very processed types of breads that, and it has a lot to do with the structure of the carbohydrate, and like it's just easier for your body to break down. And so, you know, you could do better. And so these are the types of breads that I really recommend for people with diabetes. And I really like these sprouted grain breads, and these are whole grain breads. So they, when you're looking at the grocery store, you really want to look out for whole grain. Like that's going to tell you that it's a bit better for your blood sugar. It's generally got more fiber, more vitamins, nutrients, you know, it's just, and I really like these Silver Hills ones, like squirrely bread. Like you really can't go wrong with any of the Silver Hill breads. They're all strong choices. And then this is rye bread. And if you are choosing rye, you really want to look out for at least 50% rye flour. And then there's pumpernickel bread right here. And so this is 100% rye flour. And so this has even more fiber than just regular rye bread. And so this is like a super strong choice if you're trying to manage blood sugar. And then I don't know if you can see this here, it might be behind something, but this is sourdough bread. This is what I personally eat in my home because I really love the taste of it. And this might be surprising to you, like to see sourdough on the better breads. And this is because of the acid that's inside of the sourdough bread. It really has an inhibiting effect on the enzymes in our digestive system. So it's gonna cause, like, it's not gonna cause a spike. The food's going to enter your body much more slowly, and so you're not going to get a spike in blood sugar. So these are all awesome choices if you were looking to improve your bread situation. And then I just want to add this here as well. Just because a bread is brown doesn't mean it's better. A lot of manufacturers will add molasses to bread to give it like that brown color, and I think that's because they know that people think if bread is brown it must be better. So you really have to look at the label and see, like, look for that whole grain, and then also look at the fiber content as well. I would say that if there's at least 5 grams of fiber per 2 slices, then it's a strong choice. And then less often cereals, cornflakes, probably one of the easiest foods for our body to break down. And so you will get a really big spike in blood sugar probably from cornflakes. Same with Rice Krispies. And then same with Cheerios or instant oats. All of these are going to cause, it's just going to be easier for your body to break down. And so if you were looking for something better, steel cut oats, or like the slow cooking oats, or all grain buds. And so the all bran buds. So these will be probably one of the harder foods for your body to break down, as well as the steel cut oats. So you're just going to be, it's going to be better for your blood sugar. And then so far as rice, these are the types that will be, they're more likely to cause a spike in blood sugar. So jasmine, sticky, sushi rice, arborio, and this is a type of rice that's used for, what do you call it? Bianca, do you know what I'm talking about? Like I don't know why, I just can't think of it right now. Somebody will know. It's Italian. Like it takes really long to cook. It's like, shit, I can't think of it right now.
Is it risotto?
Yes, risotto. Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Thank you. And this just has to do with like the structure of the rice, and also it's a bit of a shorter grain. And so like all of these are more likely to cause a spike in blood sugar in most people. So if you wanted to do better, like basmati is better, wild, brown, and then, these just have more fiber and more nutrients in them. But you might be surprised to see that the parboiled rice is actually quite good, like a bit better. And I know Uncle Ben's makes these, and so this has to do with the processing, and this is kind of like one instance where parboiling or converted rice is like kind of a little bit better, because it just, during the process, like the structure of the grain changes a little bit, so it's harder for your body to break down. So all of these are really solid if you're looking to, if you eat a lot of rice, these are better choices. And so far as fruit, these all are more likely to, they're higher in sugar, they're more likely to cause a spike in blood sugar. And in addition to these, I'll say cherries as well tend to cause spikes in blood sugar. And oranges as well are just more likely. But if you were to have these, I would say just have them in smaller amounts. Don't go to town on them, I would say. Or try to have it with, you know, yogurt or a piece of cheese or something just to even things out. Better fruits. Apples and pears are really amazing because they have quite a bit of fiber in them. And then berries are amazing. Like, they're probably one of the best foods that you can eat. And especially, you know, with regards to fruit, there's so much fiber in berries. You know, there's antioxidants, there's so much goodness. And so a serving of fruits or a serving of berries, like, you could have up to 2 cups at one time, and it probably wouldn't cause a spike in blood sugar. So if you're looking to enjoy something sweet, I would say any type of berry is a strong way to go. And if you were to add like some yogurt or something to that, even better. And grapefruits as well. So all of these contain more fiber, and so this is why they're better for managing blood sugar. Meal timing is super important as well. I know a lot of people who will just have like one big breakfast and one big dinner, or not even have breakfast at all, or lunch and then just have one big dinner. And when you're doing that, and just having like that large meal at the end of the day, or 2 large meals, remember I said that the amount of food that you have has a big bearing on your blood sugar levels after. So if you were just to do this, you know, you're going to get yourself like up into a higher level. And so this is when we're seeing damage to blood vessels, when we're like getting up here. And we don't want that. We want happy blood vessels. So if you were to have like smaller, more frequent snacks, you're not going to get up there. And so trying to have like 3 regular meals throughout the day, trying not to go longer than like 4 hours or, you know, more without having a meal. And that's because when we go long periods without eating, especially if we have diabetes, our liver will start to release sugar and can cause high blood sugar as well. So we really want to prevent that. So if you could be in this area here, like having a small breakfast, a snack, a smaller lunch, a smaller dinner, you're really going to be doing your diabetes a service by sticking to this level, and trying to eat when you first wake up as well, like usually within 1 or 2 hours is really great for managing your blood sugar, because again, your liver will be giving off sugar if you're not giving your body some nourishment within those first few hours of eating. And then I mentioned earlier that I don't like to tell anybody like, don't eat this, don't eat that. And these are just kind of some things that you really want to remember, especially if you have somebody in your life who has diabetes, and you know, they don't know the numbers or what they mean or what to do with them, and maybe you don't either. But as long as they're within a range of about 4 to 8, that's kind of like where we want them. That's where there's not going to be any damage happening to the blood vessels. And so one of my teachers used to say 4 to 8 feeling great. And that's, I really hope that you remember that, because it's so easy. This is where we want to be. This is the ideal range for people with diabetes, 4 to 8. And when I'm speaking to people with diabetes, like when I'm first seeing them, I don't want them to change anything at all. Like, it could be totally possible that the foods that they're eating and loving and enjoying that might not be, you know, on the list of better foods aren't actually having a terrible effect on their blood sugar. So I would say, like, just keep things where they are. Check your blood sugar before you eat, check your blood sugar after you eat 2 hours later. And that's the 2-2 rule. So 2 hours later, if you're not having a spike of more than 2, like, that food is probably totally appropriate for you, and you don't have to make any changes. Because I think a lot of times when people are diagnosed with diabetes, they think that they can't have this, they can't have that. Like, you can honestly have whatever you want. It really just depends on the amount. So even if you are finding 2 hours later that you're getting a big spike of more than 2, but it's a food that you really love, you could try having less of that type of food, or you could try, remember, adding like a protein or a fat to that. So like, that really matters. So yeah, like, I would say when you're managing your blood sugar, like, I think, like, you wouldn't have to do this forever, but just getting a good sense, like, maybe take a few days or like 7 days, like a week, and try figure out, because I think most people tend to eat the same types of foods every day pretty much. So just get a sense of what's working for you and what's not, logging that, and then you can, you know, you don't have to check your blood sugar all the time. So like, this is especially if you're just managing through diet and not, you know, you're not at the insulin or some of the other medications yet at that time. So these are all really important. And then I would say, just in general, if this is what, you know, your plate kind of looks like, you know, for most meals, I think you're doing well. Like, if you're getting, like, I'd really want you to focus on getting as much vegetables and fruit as possible. You know, you're getting a lot of fiber, you're getting your vitamins and minerals, trying to add a little bit of protein with your meal. And, you know, I would say the more plant-based types of proteins you're getting, the better, because plant proteins don't contain that bad fat, and they tend to contain more fiber as well, which is what, you know, everybody could get more of. And then adding a little bit of starch as well for energy. You know, carbohydrates are important. We don't want to limit them too much. And so these types of carbohydrates are a little bit better because, again, they have more fiber in them. They're less processed. So this is quinoa, like brown rice, wild rice, whole grain bread, whole wheat spaghetti. All of these are really strong choices. So yeah, think fiber. Try to think fiber, protein, good fat with your meals. Super important. And then I had a request to just go over hypoglycemia a little briefly. And it's super important, especially if you have a loved one who's taking insulin or any type of medication that can increase the insulin in their body. And so those are sulfonylureas. So that could be like glycoside or glyburide. I would say glyburide tends to be more associated with hypoglycemia. Glycoside's a little bit better. And hypoglycemia, you know, is defined as a blood sugar of under 4. So remember, 4 to 8 is feeling great, but if you're less than that, that's not where we want you to be either. And low blood sugar is much more likely to happen in as we get older. It's more likely to happen. So if you have a loved one who's like 70 or 80 and they're taking insulin, like, this is definitely a risk. So it's really important to know what to do when somebody goes low. And so I have I found something on Diabetes Canada that I really want to share. Let's see. So this is like Diabetes Canada is probably one of the best sites to go to learn anything about diabetes, and I found this amazing infographic. And I would say if you have a, if you live in a household with somebody who is taking insulin or like gliclazide or glyburide, you should probably like print this out, put it on the fridge, get a little bit familiar with what to do in case they go low. And so that's under 4. And so you should know the signs. And so it can be kind of tricky because the signs of low can be the signs of really high as well. But in general, these are some of the signs of hypoglycemia. So this is, it can start off with sweating, anxiety. You can be hungry, nauseous. But then once it becomes much more severe, then you're going to start to have vision changes. Like it could be quite blurry. You could be quite tired, difficulty speaking, and then unconscious. And so the only way to really know this is by checking your blood sugar. And so I would say if, even if you live in a household with somebody with diabetes, it's well worth getting one of those glucometers and knowing how to use it yourself in case they're unable to check their blood sugar themselves. So you could go into a health center, and I'm sure they would be happy to show you how to use the glucometer, or you could attend appointments with somebody, your family member. And I know most places will be happy and would probably be very welcoming for you to attend and show you how to use the glucometer. So check the blood sugar. If you're under 4, what you want to do is have some fast acting sugar. And so this is what we call the 15-15 rule. So you want to try and take 15 grams of sugar and then check blood sugar again 15 minutes later. And so I really recommend having some of these on hand. They're glucose tablets, and they're so convenient. Have them in your purse or have them in the kitchen somewhere that's easy access, and just keep these on hand in case you go low, and then check 15 minutes later. And if you're still low, you just take another one and check again 15 minutes later. And then the infographic says, like, if 15 minutes later you're above and your next meal is soon, then you can just have a little, you're fine. But if you're back to normal and the meal is more than an hour away, have a little snack just to even things out. But if blood sugar is severely low, like if you're below 2.8, you want to have a little bit more. I would say maybe have 1.5 tablets and then check again, like 15 minutes later again. But I mean, if you're alone, I would say if you're feeling these things, definitely call 911, because that's very serious. Or if you're with somebody with diabetes and they're unable to, you should definitely be calling 911 for them, because this is so dangerous, like once you get to this level. So yeah, I love this. I just went to diabetes.ca and searched hypoglycemia, and then this came up. So like if you're curious why low blood sugar might happen, like eating less than you had planned, having more medication than you planned, like maybe you injected too much insulin, or had more glycoside or glyburide than you had thought, or you were more active than you planned. But alcohol can also cause low blood sugar as well. So, and that can have an effect for up to 24 hours. So after you have alcohol, that can affect your blood sugar, usually going low within 24 hours. So if you are going to have alcohol, I would say to eat some food with that and not have more than like 2 drinks of alcohol at one time. So please print this out, and I can add this to the site as well, the Xpey Wellness site. I can add the link to this, but it's so important to know these steps. Like, you can literally save a life just by knowing this info and having this on hand. And I would say learn how to use a glucometer, and have these tablets, these glucose tablets on hand. Or like, if you don't, there are other things you could do, like take some lifesavers, honey, pop, or juice as well. Or you could just straight up put some sugar into water, and that's, you know, if you were in a pinch, that would work quite well too. So I see that I'm a little over time, but that's the end of the presentation. And if you have any questions, I would be so happy to answer. But yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you took something away from this. I hope you learned something. Yeah, hope you found something helpful.
And I'm just going to unmute just to announce that we have the presentation recorded, and so if this is something you'd like to look back on, I can send it to you by email. So you have the option of sending your email through a private chat on here. If you can't quite figure that out and you're on our Facebook page, you can message our Facebook page with your email so that I can get that link to you. We do have more upcoming presentations. The next one is with Jess again, and our Xpey Wellness team, and the topic is food as medicine. And so you'll get to hear more about some of our traditional foods. We're going to do a live demo, and then you'll leave with a berry handout and recipes. So that's going to be a really awesome webinar. And then the following one is a canning workshop. So the dates are August 5th, food is medicine with Jess Newman, and then August 20th, canning. So those are other workshops you can look forward to. If you want to hear more about the workshops that are happening, I have a Google Calendar invite. And so if you want a reminder 10 minutes before and you want it in your calendar, please send your email so that I can add you to the calendar reminder. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening. I really enjoyed that. So thank you. So there's no questions?
I don't see any questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining.
That's
Bye, Auntie. It was nice to see you or hear you.
Bye, kiddo.